So everyone's talking about Roe versus Wade being overturned by the Supreme Court, which happened over the weekend, last Friday. A lot of people are outraged right now and protesting this decision that was made. Honestly, I don't see where this has a lot to do with us, despite what the media is telling you, the mainstream media. I'm sorry, I was outside just a little while ago for only 20 minutes and I managed to work up a sweat. That's summertime in Florida, I guess. The overturning of Roe v. Wade does not make abortions illegal. What this really means is that the decisions are being reverted back to the states, which is how things were before 1973. But abortions will become less accessible to women, and they'll have to travel greater distances in order to have the procedures done. There are a lot of people who are celebrating this, and there are a lot of people who are speaking out against it. But in this video, I'm giving my opinion and stating facts that not everyone is talking about. First of all, I believe that both women and men should be held accountable for their actions. If you're not ready to bring a life into this world, I don't think you should be getting involved with anyone really in that way without using some type of contraceptive or protection. And I know those don't always work 100% of the time, but you can't just live in the moment and not expect there to be consequences for your actions, or that you can easily terminate a life because you don't feel like being a mother or a father. I believe in family. I believe in parents, a mother and a father, or two parents raising their children. There are some great single moms out there. There are great single fathers out there. There are great LGBT households out there too, raising kids. But it's always easier when you have someone to partner up with to help you. There are rare cases out there that where women have become pregnant from, I won't say the word, instead I'll add a G in front of it, grape, being violated. And that's a terrible thing for anyone to have to experience, especially when they're really young. Women have complications during pregnancy, but those percentages are around 2%, maybe lower than that. But the vast majority of abortions that are taking place have been for convenience and because people weren't held accountable for their actions. One of the reasons I believe that this overturn of Roe v. Wade is taking place is because the birth rates of whites, especially in this country, is on the decline. I heard somewhere that their death rates are actually higher than their birth rates. And in order to get their numbers back up, they must overturn Roe v. Wade. And they're saying that mainly black women are getting abortions. How could that be? We're such a small percentage of this population. We're about 13% of the population here in America. That makes no sense. And the fact that Planned Parenthood, that started going back to Margaret Sanger. She spearheaded the whole movement, and her goal was to eliminate black life, to terminate it. She and her constituents went out and got in contact with black churches and pastors and had them present this to the congregations. That was the main reason for Planned Parenthood that was led by Margaret Sanger. And I heard now that her grandson is the head of one of the Planned Parenthood organizations. I guess it runs in the family. But she was a eugenicist, and that was her goal, to exterminate black life. And according to the numbers, it worked because the black population in this country would be double what it is now, most likely, if it hadn't been for Roe v. Wade back in the early 70s. But what happened was that Caucasian women, they were also getting abortions, and their fertility rates were decreasing. And with all that's going on, it seems like they're making black women the face of this whole Roe v. Wade being overturned, that we should be the most outraged by it. And I don't think that's the case at all. Most of us, we have our kids. And I recently saw a TikTok video, a guy who worked in an abortion clinic. He was an employee there at one time. And he told the story that he was out late one night and he didn't go home that night. Instead, he went straight to work 2 hours early. And once he arrived at his workplace, he was expecting not to see anyone, but instead he saw vehicles. He described them as black vehicles lined up at the entrance. So he went inside and he saw a lot of Caucasian young ladies there, Caucasian women there to have their procedures, the abortion procedures done. But he was always told that they were supposed to come to work between 6 and 6:30, but he was there around 4 a.m. this particular morning. And his supervisor ended up kicking him out and firing him from his job that day because this was in a predominantly black neighborhood. Also, another thing that was done during Roe v. Wade back in the 70s, maybe even before that, they were putting abortion clinics in black neighborhoods purposely. Within 10 minutes of residential areas, you would have an abortion clinic there. And on the flip side of that, they were putting fertility clinics in white neighborhoods. And whenever a white woman would need to have an abortion, she would have to go incognito to the black side of town or black area to have the procedure done. And no one would know about it. And this morning, I saw a video on YouTube. It was Meet the Press, actually, a well known TV show. And there was a lady on there, I can't remember her name. She was with Black Women's Health Imperative. And basically, it seemed like they paid her off to go out there and speak out against Roe v. Wade being overturned because 33% of black women are likely to die from giving birth. And that's a lie. How low do you have to go to put that kind of propaganda out there for people to believe? None of that is true. And they had another lady, I think she may have been black and Hispanic, but her name was, I wrote it down here. She was a representative from New York, Democrat, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She was also speaking out against this decision and how it's going to disproportionately affect black women. I'll admit, there are a lot of black children who are born into single parent households. It shouldn't be that way because kids need that family structure. I was fortunate enough to have that. And without that, it's hard for kids to get what they need in their formative years from both parents. This hookup culture, hot girl summers, whatever they're calling them now, it leads to a bad situation in most cases. And I would urge you not to do it, If you're a young lady especially between the ages of 18 and 24, I would suggest, and you don't have to take my advice, I'm not telling you to, but I would suggest that if you met a nice guy who respects you and respects your boundaries, and maybe they don't have much at the time, but they're trying to build something and they're looking for someone to build something with, to build a life with, give them a chance. Don't just go after the bad boy who's only out for one thing. But in this culture now, this toxic culture that we have, what's being taught to women, especially black women, is to walk around with the attitude that you don't need a man, that you're an independent woman, you don't need anybody. I think that's wrong. I think we all need each other. That's why God put us here. If someone doesn't respect you, if they're only out for one thing, the ball is in your court to give them the green light. You don't have to do what they're telling you to do. Have respect for yourself. You know, there have been a lot of cases where a guy will not stop returning your texts because they got what they wanted. What else do they need, right? When I was younger, I was raised around women. I had two sisters, my mom and my dad. All of us grew up together. I didn't have brothers or a lot of guy friends when I was growing up and into my adult life. I was looking for someone that I could build a future with. Even though I didn't have much at the time, I've always been ambitious, I've always had goals, and I've always gone after my goals. And even when I would fall short, I would always get back up. But there were girls that I liked, that I was interested in, that wouldn't give me the time of day because I didn't have much. And they assumed that I wasn't going anywhere, or that they weren't willing to give something to and put in work in order to build something, to set a foundation. And that's the problem with our society right now. We've gone away from that. We need to get back to that, especially now. Think of how hard it is to support a family on one income. It's even hard with two, but it's even harder with one. Twice as hard. This happened back in 2009. I was in my 20s at the time, and I was working at a job. I was a few years out of college by this time. And that was a year before I went back for pharmacy. But pretty much everyone working there was in their 20s. So we were young people working there. And one of the young ladies working there, she was around 23. Her husband was in the Marines. And she had recently found out that she couldn't give birth, that she couldn't have children. And there was another young lady there. I think she was about 22. And she had a son. She was a single mother. And somehow she got pregnant. And ended up having an abortion. And when the other young lady found out, she was in tears because she and her husband had been trying and trying, but they couldn't have kids. And this other girl, you know, she has a kid. She's able to bear children and decides to get rid of it just like that. Instead of taking it to term and giving birth to the child and putting it up for adoption. I also think that it should be easier to adopt children in this country. Yes, I know that you have to screen people before they adopt kids, which is very important, but it shouldn't be as difficult as it is currently. There was a lot of tension between them because of this, and I can't remember what happened to the other girl who got pregnant. I guess she quit or stopped showing up for work. Fast forward 2 or 3 years later, I was at the store and I ran into the lady, the young lady that was married to her husband who was in the Marines. And we said hi, we talked for a little while, and she told me that she and her husband gave birth to their first child a few months before. Miracles can happen. I was so happy for her that they finally got what they wanted and what they had been hoping for, despite all of the odds and the medical professionals telling her that it just wasn't possible. I'll share another story with you. This happened about around 10 years ago. It happened at work. There was a girl that I was interested in. She was a beautiful Mexican girl. And we worked together a lot. And somehow she knew things about me without me even telling her. I thought that was kind of odd. I had never had that type of connection with anyone. And she told me things that she was dealing with, that she was going through, and we got kind of close. And there was a delivery guy who would come there to deliver packages every day. And she was always, obsessing over that guy. Oh, he's my husband. He's my husband. And I said, okay, yeah, you keep thinking that. Okay, do something about it then. One day I was finishing my shift and I asked for a phone number because I saw that other guy, he was interested in her too after a while. He would come by and stay there for several hours when he should have been out on his routes delivering, making deliveries. But I never said anything about it. But I asked her if she'd like to have dinner sometime or coffee or something. So she gave me her number. She said, yeah, sure. She gave me her number. And I called her one evening and I asked her about the other guy, if she was involved with him. And she told me he isn't important to me. And she found out that he had a son too. He was had joint custody with the mother of his son. So she got involved with him. And I overheard her one time telling someone else who worked there that he pays more attention to her than he does his son, than his child. And she thought that was really strange. We ended up going our separate ways. I started working full time at a pharmacy and I ended up leaving that job. Years later, I returned back to work part time. And she had already been gone for a while, but there were still some employees there from when I was there before. And one of the young ladies who worked there, told me that she was with that guy for 2 years, the delivery guy, and he was physically abusive towards her during that time. And moments before I was told that, though, he was still delivering there. He still had that route. And I saw him outside and I spoke to him and I asked if he was still friends with her. And if he is, if he could say hello to her for me. And he paused and, just kind of remained silent for a few seconds and said, yeah, we're still in touch. And once I walk back inside, someone else tells me how he treated her. It's sad, it really is. I'll share one more story with you. I've seen a lot in my short time in this earth. This happened about 10 years ago as well. It happened at work. I was working part time at a hotel, and everyone there was pretty young. We were in our 20s and 30s. And one of the managers there, no, she wasn't the manager, she was a regular employee, but she ended up getting involved with one of the guests. And this guy was apparently, the stereotypical thug, pants sagging, all of that, going on. But somehow she was taken by him. She couldn't resist him. And she went up to his room, in fact, and did the deed with him. Later on, she found out that she was pregnant. She was Hispanic, she was Mexican. She was in a panic because she said, I do not want to have a black baby. I have to get an abortion. I have to have an abortion. I can't have a black baby. No, I don't want this in my family. And someone else told me what had happened. I don't know if she got the abortion or not. Most likely she did, but she didn't want to have a black child or a half black child, a biracial child. But she wasn't thinking about that when she laid down with this guy, because she knew she could terminate her pregnancy pretty easily. She ended up getting involved with management there, one of the managers there. They had a thing going on. And corporate found out and let both of them go. We need the family structure back in our society. We've strayed away from that, and look where it has gotten us. I believe that women should have rights, men should have rights. But when it involves another life, that's someone else's life. There's potential there. And we can't take someone else's life because of a decision that we've made, because we're irresponsible. And I've mentioned it before, I know that a small percentage are a result of women being violated, but that's such a small percentage. The vast majority are not related to that. But for black women, Roe versus Wade, that was put into place to terminate your pregnancies. That wasn't there to help you. White birth rates are declining. There's an opioid crisis in this country that's taken a lot of white lives too. I'm not against anyone, but I have to tell the truth and tell it like it is. That's what living authentically is about. It's not about being a Democrat or talking about Democrat talking points or Republican talking points. Honestly, I'm not affiliated with either of those parties. But the Democrats, what they're going to try to do, mark my words, they're going to try to run on this come next election, these upcoming elections. They're going to make it out to make it seem like women's rights are being taken away because they're doing away with abortions. States like California, New York, states like that, I believe that you'll still have access to those types of services. And for us, for those of us who choose to go that route, I believe that there's going to be some type of private funding available to assist in that decision. But Planned Parenthood was not put into place to help us. It was put into place to eliminate us, to destroy us. A woman's body should be valued, respected. Life should be valued, should be respected. I know there are some of you out there who will disagree. There have been a lot of celebrities who have come out speaking out against this too, saying how they were in a situation where they had to terminate their pregnancies. And some of the stories, some of the people who came forward were, I was stunned by it. I couldn't believe it. If you're interested in working with me, please reach out to me. You can reach out to me here, either on YouTube or Instagram, or by emailing me at lene@authenticallyuslc.com. Or you could go to my website, authenticallyuslc, to book a free discovery call with me. So, everyone, please be safe and please make good choices.